So just like in misdemeanor cases, the decision to prosecute is ultimately made by a prosecutor, and that decision basically turns on a finding by that prosecutor that probable cause existed or exists, showing that that juvenile engaged in some delinquent or criminal conduct. Another thing that can happen with juvenile cases is they can be transferred to, big boy court, to big girl court. If the child has engaged in a felony, even if they're as young as 14, those cases can be transferred to the criminal district court or county court that oversees those kinds of offenses in that jurisdiction, in that county. So these are, scary things to consider, and I hope you're never faced with any of these decisions or troubling times in regards to a juvenile that you are the parent of or the guardian of. But things to keep in mind is that they do have the right to counsel in these scenarios. Get counsel whenever possible, and get some advice as to how that juvenile justice system is going to work and what kind of relief you may be able to get for that juvenile offender. So here's one thing that is very, very positive about the juvenile justice system in Texas. Texas and our justice system is not focused on rehabilitation. In fact, it is expressly the opposite. It is for punishment. And with the exception of the juvenile justice system, which does focus on rehabilitation and giving these children an opportunity to not ruin their lives. So it's really a blessing, and it can be quite a positive thing, because in my experience, the juvenile probation officers have a very big part in what recommendations and plea bargains are going to be entered into. And a lot of that has to do with how cooperative the juvenile offender was during the detention period or the analysis, and whether they've continued to adhere to the conditions that were set when they were released, or simply just adhered to the behavioral standards of the corrections facility where they're being housed. But the fact of the matter is that it's the only time in our justice system where there's going to be opportunities for self-improvement, for betterment. And I've said this before on my other videos that deal with criminal offenses in the state of Texas. Take advantage of that. Don't wait for the state of Texas or the juvenile probation office to tell you how to fix yourself. Start fixing yourself. Be proactive. And I know this message probably isn't going to reach a lot of juveniles, and certainly not a lot of juvenile offenders, but it might reach some parents and guardians who are faced with this. And these children need, they've turned to some bad acts, and that's generally a cry for help of some sort, and getting them the help they need so they can self-improve and self-better. It's a golden opportunity, because most of these juvenile probation officers do not want to ruin, at least in my experience, they do not want to ruin the lives of these children with a serious misdemeanor or felony offense under the age of 18. They really don't. They want to give that offender an opportunity to fix their life. And having a misdemeanor or higher level theft. A theft is a crime of moral turpitude, and a kid who gets caught stealing something of significance, you've limited your ability to get into colleges, get federal student loans, get into the military, ever practice law, get any kind of public license, ever get elected. These are such limiting decisions that can be made so recklessly and foolishly at a young age. And like I said, these probation officers are very, in my opinion, caring, empathetic social workers who really have the best interest of these kids. They want to see these kids succeed. And they'll put together packages, plans, and plea bargains, and get the state to buy into them, to give these children an opportunity if conditions are met. And if the children are at a minimum meeting expectation, these juvenile offenders can get their lives back in many cases. Anyway, I hope this has been some help. It's just broad strokes touching on the juvenile justice system. There's a whole lot of other facets to it, And some of which are, does the child have the right to jury trial? And generally they do. Yes, they have an absolute right to jury trial, even though the Supreme Court of the United States doesn't mandate it. But the state of Texas believes in the jury trial system, and so it's actually part of our Texas Family Code.